We all pod down here.
The master would not approve.
The master would not approve.
Welcome to We All Pod Down Here. I'm Brittany.
And I'm Dan.
And this week we are going to be talking about Manos, the Hands of Fate. And if you don't know this movie, then...
You should.
Yeah, so this is a classic.
In a lot of ways.
Yes. Not in the same way like The Raven is a classic Vincent Price movie.
Yeah, or Night of the Living Dead is the penultimate zombie flick.
Manos is... It just is. So we're going to be talking about Manos, the Hands of Fate, from 1966. Now, we have a very, very special show today. We were honored to be able to interview the one, the only, Mr. Frank Conniff.
A.K.A. TV's Frank.
Yes, so if you somehow have not watched Mystery Science Theater 3000, please stop what you're doing and go watch it, because obviously it's an utter delight in every way, shape, and form. So I'm going to quickly tell you a little bit about Frank's career. Obviously, as we mentioned, he's TV's Frank. He also was one of the main writers for MST3K, and he also was assigned to pick most of the movies that they watched, which of course includes our beloved Manos, the Hands of Fate.
Yep.
You have to always say it that way.
Of
Otherwise
course.
it's wrong.
He was on the show from season 2 to season 6, which was like when a lot of the best stuff they did really was on. Frank was great. He was, like I said, played TV's Frank. One of the Mads, with the Mad Scientists, with Dr. Forrester, as played by Trace Ballou. And they both have done a lot of things together.
And so a little more about Frank's career for those that don't know. Obviously, you can go to IMDb and see his long list of accreditations, but some of our favorite is going to be Sabrina the Teenage Witch. He was a writer, producer, and actor. He also did cinematic Titanic. He was a writer, producer on that.
That was with Joel Hodgson and also with Trace, I believe, too.
Yeah. And, of course, our beloved Invader Zim.
And he's got a lot of different things in his career, a very storied career. He has some great books, too. Check them out. The most recent thing he's been doing, which is called The Mads Are Back. They started touring around 2015, I believe, with him and Trace Ballou. And they were riffing a lot of different movies and stuff like that. And pandemic happened. And they transitioned to doing streaming shows once a month. We're going to talk about that a bit with Frank. But they've been doing those ever since, and they're an utter delight.
Yep, and so I figure we give everyone, before we get into the interview, a quick overview of Manos, the Hands of Fate. So this movie is confusing to say the least, but essentially the general plot is a couple and their daughter and dog are trying to find the place that they were supposed to stay. They end up going to this house that is up a road that everyone claims nothing's up that road, and of course there is something up that road. It's our beloved The Master and Torgo. Torgo, of course, is the highlight of this entire movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite the dynamic duo. I mean, Batman and Robin, stand aside.
But yeah, so Torgo, it tells them, and that was our quote from the beginning, the master would not approve. He tells them they can't stay, and for whatever reason, they don't listen to this creepy man that's out in the middle of nowhere, telling them they can't stay.
He keeps telling them to leave,
and
he's creepy as heck, so why wouldn't you leave?
Yeah, and apparently, some early rights of it had him supposed to be like a satyr. Later ones didn't, but they still gave him these really, funny knees, and so when he walks, it kind of looks like how you'd think a satyr would walk.
Yeah, basically really big knees. I don't know how they used that,
It was prosthetic.
Was it a prosthetic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had the guy that played the master, Tom Neiman, helped design those, and apparently they were rather uncomfortable. They weren't painful, but they were just awkward and uncomfortable. Which,
honestly, from watching it, I thought they just took a small pillow and shoved it under the pant legs or something like that.
That probably would have been more comfortable.
Probably.
But so they get up there and they end up trying to stay. The dog gets out at one point. Oh, and I guess I should say, if for some reason you don't want this movie spoiled, go watch it if you can. And when I say if you can, I don't mean if you can find it. Because it's very easy to find. It didn't get copyrighted ever.
Yeah, it's in public domain.
Yes, totally public domain. So
if you
want to try, I'd recommend just watching the riff tracks or the MST3K. But basically, general plot of this movie is that they go there, dog dies, bad things happen. They see this painting of the master and his demon dog. And ends up that the master's some kind of not, I guess I don't think he's supposed to be a deity himself, but he's supposed to serve a deity.
Like a vessel.
Which is Manos, which ironically Manos is Spanish for hand. So
it's hands, the hands of fate?
pretty much. So they go, and I guess the master's trying to get more wives. He's collecting his wives for whatever reason. But they're all just these women that are just like sitting against pillars, and they're all just seem to be in some weird trance. And the master's just laying there asleep. And ends up being that Torgo doesn't want the master to have this woman as his wife, because he wants to have this woman as his wife. And at that point,
It's just utter chaos.
yeah, so the wives fighting each other, trying to decide whether the daughter, which is Debbie, so she's little Debbie, they want to try to decide whether she needs to die or whether she's going to be made a wife. In the end, Torgo seems to run off into nowhere. After they cut off his hand, now they have this burning hand. They're just like touching the stuff. So Torgo runs off into nowhere.
Runs? He more waddled off.
Sure. So he did his little awkward run off into nowhere, into the darkness. They end up that the dad now basically takes Torgo's place, so some other people come up there, and you see him be like, I am Michael, I take care of the place, when the master is away. Then you see that the master is sleeping on his little weird stone thing, and all the wives are up against their little pillars, and one of them is little Debbie, and one's the wife from the original, so The end.
Question mark.
Yeah, that's right, they have the question mark, and you're like, no, let it be the end.
Let it go.
Apparently, if it did well, the reason he made Torgo's fate kind of like
ambiguous
was because his idea was if it did well, he could then go ahead and make a sequel with like Torgo, like call him like Torgo Returns or something like that.
Well, like Manos, Torgo Strikes Back. I mean, like what happened at the end? The third one's going to be Return of the Torgo. I mean,
I'd watch all of those.
Well, I mean, we did watch. So in 2018, they made a sequel and a prequel. We watched both of them.
We got through both of them.
Yeah, they're interesting. I mean, if you're watching Manos, it's like you're not watching this for some sort of bit of cinematic brilliance.
Also, I figure we go into a quick bit of trivia.
So during the premiere in El Paso, Texas, there was a lot of heckling, and to the point where a lot of the cast and crew just snuck out of the theater before the film was over.
Yeah,
just did the Homer Simpson into the hedges. They just got the heck out of there.
They didn't want to be associated with this or be seen.
But Harold P. Warren stuck around.
Yes, he did. So Harold P. Warren, which is the writer, director, producer, and what played the dad, right? Mm-hmm. He stuck around, and some lady at the end attacked him with her purse because she was so mad about the fact that little Debbie became one of the master's wives.
So if it would have been made in current day, there would have been like YouTube video of this. It would have been glorious.
Well, here's the thing. When I started reading that bit of trivia, I was hoping that it was going to say that she attacked him with a purse just because the movie was so bad. Because that would have made me really happy. But anyway, so also for this film, no one really got paid aside from little Debbie, who was played by Jackie Neiman Jones. She got a bicycle as payment, and her dog, which was the Doberman, supposed to be like the demon dog, got a bag of dog food, and no one else was paid. This movie lost money, even though I think it had like a $19,000 budget.
This cost $19,000?
I believe
back
that's
in
what
the 60s?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a significant chunk of change for that time period. So good on you, Harold P. Warren.
Yep.
But hey, we have to thank him because, I mean, it resulted in one of the best riffs that MST3K ever did.
Yeah.
And so MST3K was so good at unearthing these kinds of obscure movies that would have just faded into complete obscurity without them, and kind of gave them new life and a new audience, and it's kind of cool.
So, and the nice part is like Jackie Neiman Jones has really embraced this. So, if you want to read any more of the trivia, it's all over IMDb. It's really funny to read through at some point. But getting to the Mads are back on December 14th, they will be doing a live stream of this, and their guest is going to be Jackie Neiman Jones. So that'll be really fun to get to hear some Q&A with her and get to see more of that. So tickets are going to be on Eventbrite, and we're going to have a link to that in our show notes.
Yep, they're on sale now. Go grab them. They're like $10.
Worth every penny.
Oh, for sure. We've watched a lot of these, and they're a really good time, really fun.
I look forward to this every month.
Yeah, and even if you can't watch live, they send you a download of the full broadcast, so you can have that to keep, which is really nice. So you can go back and watch it any time.
Yeah, so if you've never done this before, this is the time. Highly, highly recommend this, because it is going to be so much fun. I
mean, every time we've watched these, we've had to kind of like, because we haven't always been able to watch them live.
Yeah, if we're not watching it live, we've definitely paused it as we were laughing so hard.
Exactly. We're laughing so hard to the point where it's like, I can't concentrate because I'm going to miss something. We have to pause it because we're losing it, just look at each other and just start cracking up.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just pure fun. It's a good time. Definitely check it out.
For sure. Now, without further ado, let's get on to our interview with Mr. Frank Conniff.
Enjoy.
Awesome.
All right. So it's our distinct honor to introduce our special guest here today. You know him from Mystery Science Theater's TV's Frank, Cinematic Titanic, and of course, now the Mads are back. We're here to talk about the upcoming riff by the Mads of the infamous Manos, The Hands of Fate on December 14th. Welcome, Frank Conniff. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So I was wondering, Manos is one of the movies that MST3K made famous, or, infamous maybe. I know you were the guy who picked out a lot of the movies to show, including this one. What was the story, how you found this thing?
Well, it's not that particularly, it's not like a national treasure kind of story or anything like that. It was just, as my job at Best Brains was, I screened the films and then chose them to show to the rest of the writers to decide if we were going to riff them or not. So Manos was just another film that I saw on a VHS tape in a box of tapes I got from HBO Downtown Productions, which was the company that did all the Comedy Channel programming and Comedy Central programming. And it was just a tape that I saw, and I saw it, and I was like, wow, I've got to show everyone else I'm looking at. And I remember we watched it while we were having lunch, which was maybe not a great idea, but but everybody immediately agreed that we had, this was when we had to riff.
I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure you've been preparing for the new riff. When's the last time you've seen it?
I haven't seen it, I don't think, in its entirety since we riffed it, like 30 years ago.
Wow.
Or however long ago that was. I have seen scenes from it, and a clip from it I did an improvised riff of at this club here in New York, in Queens, called QED, which Chris Kirschbeck produced a show there called Movies Are Dumb, which were live improvised riffs, and I participated in them sometimes. And so we did just a clip of it there, but I think that's the only time I've really seen it, except for all the GIFs that I see.
There's a lot of them out there. You search for Manos on Giphy, it just explodes.
Yeah. Like, you guys really made this famous.
Yeah.
Which I wonder to an extent was that, like, since it became so famous because of you guys, did the people who made it, is this that kind of the reason they were able to do their Kickstarter and get the prequel and the sequel made?
Yeah, I think they've all said that, that we were the ones that that made it famous. It was, I think it was only released in Texas, privately by the guy who made it. Mm-hmm. And they had a premiere and everything. I don't think it got wide distribution. And then it was just really underground for a long time. And, Mystery Science Theater is, that's one film we can say, we made it, we're the ones that made it famous. We can't say that about any Ed Wood films or anything like that, because a lot of those were notorious before we came along. Mm-hmm. But Manos is the one that people have probably heard of because of us. So it's a dubious distinction at best.
For sure.
I mean, who hasn't seen the Torgo walk? I mean, come on.
Who hasn't tried the Torgo walk?
Torgo's iconic. What can I say?
Yeah.
He is. How did the idea of doing the new riff come up?
Well, we were just, for our December riff, this is only our second year that Tracy, you and I have been doing these digital online shows. And last year we took an old, for the December show, we figured we should maybe do some kind of Christmas thing. And last year we did Santa Claus, which we had also riffed
Hmm.
Spanish Santa Claus movie, which we had riffed on Mystery Science Theater. We did a whole new riff of it for December, kind of a special Christmas thing. And then, this year we were thinking, all the Christmas stuff has been done already. Riff Tracks has done all kinds of Christmas movies and stuff. And and then we just decided that Manos, the Hands of Fate would be like a special Christmas treat to do that.
For sure.
So that's why it's oddly enough our Christmas movie this year.
Hey, I'm all in favor of Torgo Claus. I think that would be pretty
Oh my
fantastic.
gosh. Now I'm going to have to
Absolutely.
try to draw that.
Right? I know you mentioned other Christmas movies. I know Santa Claus Conquers the Martians was one of the movies that has been riffed 3 times by MST3K and Riff Tracks. And I think this is going to be the second movie that's been riffed 3 times.
Yeah, probably if it's like the trifecta
Mhm.
of MST and then Riff Tracks and then Trace and I, Santa Claus Conquers the Martian was done 3 times because Riff Tracks did it and then Cinematic Titanic did it as well.
Yep.
So Trace and I think Trace refuses to do that one again. Um, yeah, so I think, it's in that category of films that have been riffed a few times. And I'm sure a lot of people just at home have riffed it. So,
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
I say like Santa Claus Conquers the Martians is one that puts my dad into tears every single time.
Well, I saw it when I was a kid when it was in first release, when I was like 8 years old or something like that.
Was that traumatic?
But the thing about it is, I mean, when I was that kid, when I was that age, I think I just liked anything. If it was on TV, if it was on a movie screen, I watched it, and that was enough for me. But I don't think I thought Santa Claus Conquers the Martians was very good because I only remembered that I saw it, but I didn't remember anything from the movie. Whereas around that time, was the same time when I was a kid when I saw Mary Poppins, and I remembered everything in Mary Poppins for the rest of my life. So I think when you forget a film, it means it didn't really have that much of an impact on you.
Yeah,
For
definitely.
sure. What do you think made Mando stand out from all of these other movies that you've been able to riff? What do you think that really made it?
I think that there's something just singular about its vibe, and it has that unique quality. It's not exactly like an Ed Wood movie, but it has the same kind of Ed Wood thing, which to me is, Ed Wood you see a part of his soul in his movie making. It's just so unique, and I think this movie had that same quality where it just had a tonality. It's not the worst film we ever did. I think there are worse films we did. I think The Creeping Terror was worse. I think The Dead Talk Back was worse. But it just has its own. It just like Ed Wood. It feels like it was made by an individual. As bad as it is, it's like personal filmmaking in a weird way, and I think that's part of why like Manos and films like it stand out.
Yeah, I think it's part of its charm.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about that we felt like a lot of these movies that are these real low budget bad movies, like you said, like the Ed Wood movies, even like Birdemic and stuff like that. It's like you can tell that the people who made it really cared and tried. But when you see movies that have these massive budgets, like we actually one of our first episodes we reviewed Malignant, and I was like, this movie had a huge budget and just someone should have told James Wan no. And so we was like, I always feel like when I watch this, I'm like more annoyed because I'm like, you had all the stuff to be able to make this awesome, and you just didn't even put it. You just like made something to make money. It felt like, whereas all these other ones are like, I think I read somewhere Manos was made on a bet, like that it was like one guy bet the director he couldn't do it or something like that, and so they did it based on a bet.
Yeah, I believe that, and I've said for a long time, and I mean this sincerely. I'm not being glib. That I like Ed Wood as a director more than I like Michael Bay. Ed Wood's movies have a real personal, kind of soulful quality to them. And people like Michael Bay, their movies are so impersonal, and I don't get anything out of them. Whereas I do get something out of an Ed Wood movie or a movie like Manos, the Hands of Fate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Definitely.
a movie like that will stick with me forever, whereas a movie
Yeah,
like a blow 'em up action movie is just out of my brain as soon as it's over.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well, even the Star Wars holiday special sticks with me forever, but probably for slightly
That
different reasons.
but that one is the painful one. I don't know if I could ever watch that
I've
one.
never. Apparently, Dan's watched it without the riff tracks over it, but that was our first pretty much date ever. Is Dan was like brought that over to my house and was like, "Here, let's watch this."
Yeah,
Yep.
that's the Star Wars holiday special. To me, it's not that it's a bad Star Wars thing, although it is. But what it really is to me, it's a bad '70s variety show.
Hmm.
That's the sensibility behind it. It was made by all like variety show people who normally worked on stuff like the Donnie and Marie show and stuff like that was big in the '70s. And actually, the '70s is what killed off the variety show genre, which was huge in television in the '50s and the '60s. And in the '70s, there was just a dearth uh, of really bad variety shows. I know some people like the Sonny and Cher show. I wasn't a fan of it. The Captain and Tennille show, and stuff like that. And that's what the Star Wars Holiday Special is really in that genre, way more than it's in the Star Wars genre.
For sure.
And I also feel that Lucas, from what I hear, he just wanted to sell toys that Christmas, so he wanted some kind of Star Wars product out, and he didn't even pay attention to it that much. And it says to me that Lucas really didn't, even though Star Wars was so huge even back then, I don't think he knew what he had really.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's
Yeah.
fascinating in that sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
quite the historical piece for sure. And I know he's been quoted as saying that if he could find every bootleg of it and smash it to pieces.
Yeah, but it's a part of his legacy, and it has a life of its own, and he should just embrace it.
Yeah,
For sure, for sure. Disney has. I mean, they decided to make a Lego Star Wars holiday
I didn't
special.
see that, but I heard it was very good, and
It's cute. Yeah.
yeah, and it whether you like, Mark Hamill tweets about it all the time on his Twitter feed. Um, so it's definitely there.
yeah. So back to Manos. Out of curiosity, have you seen either the prequel or the sequel that they made?
No, I haven't. Have you seen it?
We watched them both yesterday. We got through
really?
them. They're very
Well,
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, the people who made them, I say God bless, and
Oh, for sure.
I wish them well, but I don't know, like, why I need to see that, I don't know why I need to see a Manos sequel, and that vibe that I was talking about of the film, it can't be recreated. You can't be self-conscious and make a movie like Manos, the Hands of Fate. Stuff. There's some stuff now like Sharknado or something like that. That's very self-conscious and very aware of that it's so bad. It's trying to be so bad it's good, but it's trying to do that, and that ruins it for me. So It's just like I said, the people who made it, I wish them well, but I'm not. That's not a particular kind of thing that I'm into.
The funny thing, bring up Sharknado, is in the sequel at the very beginning. There's these kids in the car and they're talking about Sharknado and how bad it is and stuff like that. So it's
Yeah.
like they're really really aware of it, even referencing that. So
Yeah. It's just, and people enjoy it, and that's fine. But it's, to me, like, people associate Sharknado with Mystery Science Theater, it's that kind of thing. And to me, it's a whole different thing from what we did. It's it's not something that really interests me that much.
Like a
I
lot
can
of the
understand
movies
that.
you guys did, it were movies that, weren't going to be a parody. They were trying to
Well,
make a
no,
serious
any,
film.
any self-consciousness um, would have disqualified us from, would have made us not do them. The movies that we did on Mystery Science Theater and that Trace and I do, um, and the Mads are back, are all very sincerely made movies, and that's why Trace and I really like doing movies from that era, from the 50s and 60s, because there's an earnestness to them.
Mhm.
It makes them very conducive to riffing. Whereas any kind of irony or winking at the audience on the part of the filmmakers, then it's not good for riffing. They're already, um, you know, riffing on themselves, so they don't need us really.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think Sharknado needs a whole lot of help.
Oh, and you know what? They they figured out this audience for that kind of thing, and they ran with it. They made like 7 films or whatever, and they had a big success with it. But it's just not. And some people automatically assume that I would really be into Sharknado and that I would really want to riff it. And it's like the opposite of that. I wouldn't want to riff it, and I'm not. Um, it's not something I'm enthusiastic about. Although if people enjoy it, then that's great.
By chance, have you seen A Comedy of Terrors?
The Vincent Price
Yeah.
movie, yeah, years ago, um, but not recently. Like
Okay.
basically when I was a kid, I saw it.
Yeah, because that just when you were talking about that made me think of that, just where it very much is not, oh, I think, aware of itself, but it's very fun at the same time. So it feels like it
Yeah,
would be in that
yeah,
vein.
it is that, and those Edgar Allan Poe movies that Roger Corman made with Vincent Price are among Corman's best films
Oh
for
yeah.
sure.
For sure, no doubt. So mentioning the newer Manos flicks, Jackie Naaman Jones, who you have of course played Debbie in the original, and that you're going to have as your special guest for Q&A on the live riff. How did all of that come about and getting her involved?
Well, she just I think we just had some fans and some friends who alerted us to her, and she actually wrote a book about the movie, and she was aware of us for sure, and she was very grateful to us for making the film famous, and she's a very delightful person, and we were just like kind of hooked up with her through mutual friends, and we had her. She lives in Portland, and when Trace and I did a show in Portland like years ago, she was there, and we weren't riffing Manos, but she was there in the audience, and we had her come up and do a Q&A and stuff, and so she's great, and of course, we always have a Q&A guest for our live streams, and of course, Jackie was the perfect guest for this episode.
Oh, for sure.
Oh,
That's really cool. I
absolutely.
didn't know about her getting to come up on and do that Q&A. Was that like a surprise thing that she was doing that, or was that already like pre-planned?
What, in Portland?
Yeah.
No, it was. I think we knew she was going to be there, and so it was just a kind of spontaneous thing. Although I think Trace already and I knew that since she was going to be there, we always did a Q&A at the end of the show, so we were going to bring her up. But in this case, my memory is that we had technical problems with the film we were showing, and we had to really vamp, for a long time before we even showed the movie. And I think we had her come up during that segment as well.
Got it.
Nice.
That had to be fun though.
Yeah. So it was lucky she was there.
For sure. Now, we've been really enjoying the Mads monthly live streams. We've watched most of them. They're such a good time. And, was that, I know you guys were touring, you and Trace, beforehand, and then pandemic happened, unfortunately. Was it difficult to transition from doing live shows to streaming shows? Because it feels like it would be quite the transition.
It was a transition for sure, but it was kind of scary before we did it because it was, for us, it was new territory. Trace and I are both, neither of us are particularly like tech savvy people. Trace is more tech savvy than I am, but neither of us are really, that kind of stuff doesn't come naturally to us. And I think it was lucky that I was friends with Chris Gershbeck. So I just sent him an email one day. Trace and I were just, what are we going to do? We can't perform live. This is our livelihood. It's our income. And I just said, well, do you think we could maybe do live streaming shows online? And he was like, gee, I don't know. Like, we really didn't even know if we could pull it off. It seemed like a very big thing to pull off to us. And I wrote Chris Gershbeck an email, and I said, what do you think of this? Do you think this is possible? And he's like, oh, let me look into it. And he did. And I think there were a couple of ways to go about it that weren't quite right. And then we just hit on Zoom and YouTube, and it just was easy. But before we did it, I was very scared, and I was always worried about technical problems and the whole thing having to be shut down because it's not working, and it was just very stressful. But once we did that first show and it went off without a hitch, then we were like, wow, it was like such a relief. It's like, wow, this could actually work. And for me, it's been such a blessing in the pandemic that we were still able to have income and still make a living. I mean, so and it really has transformed things in the sense that I would love to go back to doing live shows, and I hope we do live shows. Maybe it'll happen next year. I can't say for sure, but I hope we do. But even if we do, we're still going to always do the monthly streaming shows now.
Yeah, well,
that's great.
I'll say that's good because we really enjoy them.
Yeah, it's like a special thing we look forward to every month.
Yeah,
so
a lot of people when we were doing the live shows would be like, well, why don't you come to my town? I can't go and see that. That's so far away. Although we did have people who drove long distances to come see us, but so now it kind of gives everybody a chance to see the show. So it's been a total blessing.
Yeah, it's been one of the good things I think that came out of the pandemic because even some of the bands we don't get to see very often that play in Europe, they all did live streams and stuff like that to make some side income, and we got to go basically watch bands that we rarely ever get to see. So
yeah. I mean, it's I think the technology of it is not just for us, but just for people doing shows on Zoom and stuff. It's such a great. It's given people just in their own homes, a way to be creative, and that's a really great thing.
For sure.
Yeah, it's a great medium for sure, and it's you guys, I feel like, are one of the pioneers, really, one of the first ones who really started doing it and doing it consistently.
We were lucky in that we had something we could do, riffing on movies that a lot of people already liked, and that would even pay money if we charged them a little bit of money to watch it. I think that's the puzzle a lot of people doing online stuff are trying to figure out, is how to make income off it. It's a very tricky thing, and we were lucky that we had this thing that lends itself well to a streaming show in a way that maybe stand-up comedy doesn't lend itself that well, because if you're not in front of an audience, it's awkward. At least I think. I know a lot of my friends we're doing online stand-up shows during the pandemic. But that's not the kind of thing I think is ever going to really catch on. Although I think more, I'm noticing that from a lot of live shows, a lot of music shows, and comedy shows, that there's a streaming option for them now more than there ever was before. So that's a good thing.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I know the Mads are no stranger to riffing shorts too. Some
Right.
of the shorts that you guys have done have been some of my absolute favorites. Like How to Keep a Job just puts me in stitches every single time. Is it difficult to find new shorts to riff, or are there just that
No,
many
no,
educational films?
they seem to. They seem to be available, and the same thing with the movies that we do. You might have thought that we would have gone through everything in Mystery Science Theater that was available, and then we find these films, like the one we did just last month, the Voyage to the Planet of Prehistoric Women, and I'm like,
That was wonderful.
yeah,
Absolutely
like
wonderful.
how did we miss that one the first time around? So there's a lot of films like that, and there's a lot of shorts out there like that. So hopefully, I think it'll be a while before we go through all of them.
Yeah, it's impressive to me how many of these kind of little educational films there are out there. Because
Yeah, that was a whole industry in its day. A
I
lot of it
remember
out
even
of
watching some of those in school. Like I
a
remember one
a lot of
about
it out of Kansas City, I believe. Those Centron and those companies that made those short films. It's a whole subgenre of filmmaking.
For sure.
I remember one in elementary school where it was this whole like don't put your head under a bus basically, and it had like a kid reaching for a ball, and then the ball pops and it's like that could have been your head. And it's like this is why I probably was traumatized. Like this is why kids in my generation have anxiety.
So I know that you've riffed so many things. There's ever run into a movie or a short that's just like this is just too rough that I can't do this?
Well, yeah, we always had those, but the thing about those is they never make it past the stage of just screening it, and then you go, nah, this I don't think really works, either because it's too bad or it's too incompetently made. You can't hear anything, you can't see anything, you know. But people ask this a lot. If they ever started writing a film and then gave up in the middle of it, and that's never happened. Once we commit to writing the film, then it gets done one way or the other.
Out of curiosity, going back to Manos, if they ever were to do like an actual remake of Manos, do you know who you think would want you, or who you would want to play Torgo?
I think Zach Galifianakis, I think, would be like a
Oh, that I didn't even
That
think of
would
him,
be
but
great.
that would be perfect.
And I've known Zach for years. I used to do stand up with him in L.A. and it's funny because before he became really famous, when we were doing Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, there was a riff where this guy that kind of looked like Zach Galifianakis came into the room, and we just said, "Hey, Zach Galifianakis," and the audience went crazy. And I told Zach about that. I said they freaked out when we did that. They loved it, and like I didn't even know that many people knew who you were, but they did. So he would be great as Torgo, and he's a really funny guy himself. So that's what he would come up with for that role, But other than that, I mean, I don't know, just Nick Cage, maybe. I don't know.
I could see Nick Cage as the master.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
All right, we got to make this happen now.
Yeah. I know one of the most infamous images for Manos is the cloak that the master wears, of course. And the MST3K episode, it was not hands but feet. Who came up with that idea?
Oh, I don't remember who came up with it's hard to remember who came up with what riff or what idea for what sketch. So Someone came up with it, and we all encouraged whoever that person was.
That was perfect.
For sure.
Like
Do
you,
you think?
I see people wearing that costume for Halloween and stuff, and so it's awesome.
I heard the director like really embraced it and would wear that to like every Halloween party he went to, and like now his son does the same thing apparently.
Yeah, I believe it. I totally believe it.
Do you guys
Will it
have
be
your
making
own?
an appearance in the
Yes,
show?
do either you guys have that robe?
Not so far that I know of.
That'd be funny if like one of you had the hands and one had the feet.
Oh my goodness.
But, yeah, we could do. You could do. They could. Someone needs to make one for Chris's cats and have paws on it instead.
Oh, sure. Listen, I think you're coming up with a whole product line here.
Yeah.
And Katos, the paws of fate.
Yeah, Katos.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Frank, for taking out so part of your day to talk to us today. It's truly an honor. We were looking forward to the riff on the 14th. It's going to be incredible. So everyone remember December 14th, Manos, the Hands of Fate, the Mads. Tickets are on Eventbrite. Be sure to check out the Mads website, madsareback.com, Facebook, facebook.com/the Mads are back, and at the Mads are back on Twitter. Frank, anything else you would like to add to this, or?
Thank you so much for having me on the show, and I hope people keep watching us, and I hope everybody stays safe.
Absolutely, and we'll link everything in the show notes. And again, Frank, thank you so much. It's been such an
Thank
honor.
you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll be watching on the 14th.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Have a happy holiday.
You too.
Thank you. You too, sir. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, and that was our interview with Mr. Frank Conniff, TV's Frank.
Yep. So certainly thanks again to Chris Gershbeck for help setting this up for us, and he's also the fine gentleman who runs the shows for the Mads Are Back. And thank you so much to Frank Conniff for taking a little bit of time to sit down and chat with us. It was our honor and our privilege. It was a dream come true to get to talk to you, so thank you so much.
And a reminder again to buy tickets to see the Mads Are Back live stream on December 14th, or if you can't watch it live, you can still get the download. That is going to be on Eventbrite. And again, we will have links to all of that, to their Facebook page, Twitter, social media. Everything's going to be in the show notes.
Yep. Also, check out Chris's company, Dumb Industries. We'll have links to that, too. He puts on a lot of great shows. He also does a show with Mary Jo Pell, who was the Doctor's Forrester's replacement on MST3K. She's wonderful. Check her out and all the other wonderful shows he puts on, too.
All right, and so with that, thanks for listening. Until next time, this has been We All Pod Down Here, and I'm Brittany.
And I'm Dan.
Bye. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.
Our logo was designed by Emmanuel Arroyo.
Our website is weallpoddownhere.com.
Email us at weallpoddownhere@gmail.com.
And you can follow our shenanigans at weallpod on Twitter.
And at weallpoddownhere on Instagram and Facebook.
And feel free to suggest a movie you want us to review.
Or if you just want to suggest something to make me really uncomfortable.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.